Warren Haynes, it is a pleasure to see your face, sir.
How you doing, man?
I'm very, very well. How are you?
Good.
Before we get going, I don't know if you'll remember this or not, but we have had interaction back in the early 90s when your solo career first started.
Oh yeah.
We met through Stephanie, and you handed me a cassette of some of your stuff. And I remember playing a song off that cassette on the air at the radio station I was at called, does this name ring a bell to you? Sweet Dreams and Fat Chances?
Yeah, absolutely.
That ring a bell?
That
Uh,
song's never been released.
yeah, I don't have the cassette anymore. But it's funny. Someone sent me a link to a comment I made in the trades back then. You know, when people would brag about what they're playing and how great the response is and whatnot. And I had dropped a note, dropped a mention on this Warren Haynes song we had started playing. And then, like 2 days later, I get an email. Hey, would you like to talk to Warren? I'm like, all right, this is just a weird happenstance. So
Yeah.
anyway, I wanted to share that I've been following and seeing you for a long time.
You've been supported from the very beginning. I totally remember that. And it's funny you say that. That song has never been released, but the recording that I did of it back then I love, and I've always thought about at some point actually releasing that recording, remixing it and releasing that recording, because it's a really good version, and I love the song. It's just never come to light.
Well, there's a time and a place for everything, I guess,
Yeah.
right? You know.
This conversation will stimulate that
Oh,
somehow.
well, you know what? If it does, then I'd be honored. As I am just to chat about this heavy load blues. So the Rat Rock Nation knows you, appreciates what you've been doing over the last, 4 decades or so, three and a half at least. And if there's anyone I would trust in modern music, even though we've been around for a while, I still think we're in modern music. If there's anyone I trust to curate a blues record, it's you, Warren.
Well, thank you.
Um,
It's definitely something I've been wanting to do for a long time.
my question is, how did you and Government Mule narrow it down? Because there's so much good stuff to choose from.
There is, and I've actually been making a list for several years of blues classics, classics in my mind. Some are very obscure, but songs that I might want to tackle at some point. And then during the whole COVID thing, it just kind of seemed like the right thing to do, And speaking of Stephanie brought up when we were talking about Government Mule making a new record. She's like, "What do you guys think about making a blues record?" And everybody was excited about the concept. I said, "Well, I would love to make a blues record, but only if we can make it simultaneously with another Government Mule record, because I've written so much material during this whole lockdown that I'm just dying to get it all on tape." So we looked for and found a studio that could accommodate two different setups. A studio in New England called the Power Station New England in Connecticut. They had a big room adjoining a small room. We set up all our normal gear in the big room with the high ceiling and all these small little amplifiers and a small little drum kit in the little room with the low ceiling. And we would go in the morning and start recording a Government Mule record like we normally do. And about 9 p.m., we'd move over to the little room and play blues the rest of the night. And we did that every day. And Heavy Load Blues is the first release to come out of that.
The songs, they breathe through that equipment. And tell me a little bit about how you decided what kind of vintage equipment to play this stuff through, the instruments you chose. Now, I'm not a gearhead, but I know a lot of people who are watching this will recognize any of those terms that you put out. But how much did that equipment play into what we are hearing and the vibe?
An enormous amount, I would say. The studio's a little over an hour from my house. So we brought a truck to my house and to our warehouse where we store some of my gear collection, and took more gear than I've ever taken to the studio ever. We had vintage guitars, vintage amplifiers everywhere, and thankfully it was a big facility and they could kind of accommodate all that. Uh, Old amplifiers, mostly Gibson, but there's also an old Supro amp like Jimmy Page played through on the first Led Zeppelin record. Old vintage guitars, again, mostly Gibson, but some Epiphones and stuff like that as well. But we recorded to analog tape in this little room with low ceilings. We're all set up right on top of each other, no headphones, just playing like we were in a little blues club. And everything was live. So every instrument is bleeding into every microphone.
Yeah.
And of course, we're using a lot of old RCA ribbon microphones. And you know, I made a joke that everything in that room was older than me. For the most part, that was true, you know. We would plug, let's see what this guitar sounds like through that amp. Oh, that's a cool sound. Maybe we should use that on such and such. And it was just that sort of experience, you know. And we would try different combinations and see what sounded good for which song, and try to get as many first takes as possible. And, you know, the blues is meant to be played at night. So that was part of the mission, is let's start around 9:30 and then go till 2 a.m. and capture whatever we can, you know.
The your story about the list that you told just minutes ago reminds me of the story about Johnny Cash keeping that list of songs that he passed down to Roseanne.
Yeah.
That turned into that really great experience.
Yeah, it's a great record.
What of these songs mean much to you, or what's the Howlin' Wolf mean, and the things that the extension that you did to Snatch It Back, you know, what are is there a reason why you picked them, and what does it mean to you to kind of play them out as Government Mule?
Well, let's start with Snatch It Back and Hold It. The original version of that was 1965, Junior Wells with Buddy Guy. But the original version was only 2 minutes and 40 seconds long, and had harmonica, Junior playing harmonica.
Right.
We wanted to do it a little differently, but for the main body of the tune, kind of keep that similar vibe. So I had been messing around with this instrumental idea, which turned out to be this song called Hold It Back, which we sandwich in the middle of Snatch It Back and Hold It. So we play a couple of verses of Snatch It Back, and then in the middle instrumental, on cue, we go into this jam that was, again, like a first take, and we just liked what happened, so we kept it. That's kind of a similar approach to what we do on stage a lot, you know. So for 3 or 4 of the tunes, we would open them like that. You mentioned Howlin' Wolf. We covered I Asked Her for Water, She Gave Me Gasoline.
Cool.
I think that's like 9 minutes or something.
It's smoking.
And it kind of goes into this sort of Band of Gypsies kind of feel or something in the middle. But again, it was the first take and first and only take. We never played it a second time. And
Wow.
that's the only time, that's the first time we ever played that song. We came up with this arrangement, we played it, recorded it, looked at each other and said, yeah, that was really good, let's keep it. And it was also the first song we recorded for the album. So it kind of set the tone a little bit, even though it was a little heavier than what we were expecting. I think we were just getting our aggressions out because we'd been in lockdown for so long.
Right.
When we played that take, it was like, okay, well, that's what it sounds like when Government Mule plays the blues. You know? But we didn't want every song to be that heavy. We approached it on a song-by-song basis. So like the Elmore James cover sounds a lot like the original, and not like us reinterpreting it. It just sounds like us paying homage to it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if I feel like you went into this trying to make a Government Mule blues record as opposed to Government Mule playing the blues. And there's a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah, there is. We play the blues on stage, but it's anything goes. We're playing it our own way, and in some ways, it's similar to like the way Led Zeppelin would play the blues, the way the Allman Brothers would play the blues, the way Cream would play the blues. But for this record, we wanted at least a large part of it to be more paying tribute to where it came from. So we kind of gave ourselves some parameters. I think we gave ourselves some rules and then broke the rules. So it was, the intent was, let's get a little more traditional, and a lot of that had to do with the way we were set up and the way we recorded and the type of equipment we chose. But a lot of it was the mindset too. So I think it's a nice balance of us doing things our own way and us pointing the finger toward some stuff that we love.
And part of what makes it a Government Mule record, I think, by definition, it are these extensions. As you said, a lot of blues records, you're coming in at 3 minutes, 3:10, right? But you stretch these things out and make them 6 and 8, 7, 9 minutes long. And so the Government Mule fan, I think, says, well, if they're doing a record and they stretch it out, I'm really, this is like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and of course we did a deluxe version that has 8 more tracks, 2 live tracks, and 6 more studio tracks, and those are for the hardcore fans that 13 songs is not enough, which would include myself. I'm that kind of listener. If I'm buying a record by somebody and there's a deluxe version available, that's the one I'm going to lean toward.
Sure. I want to talk about the gigs coming up because we've got New York City, of course, for New Year's, and I think there's a Philly gig coming up too. But before I ask you about that, you have some original compositions mixed in with these covers, correct?
Yeah, it's basically half and half.
Yeah.
Most of the original stuff was written in the last couple of years. The one song, there's a song called Hiding Place that's on the bonus disc that's older, and the one song on the standard CD, If Heartaches Were Nickels, I wrote years ago, and Joe Bonamassa recorded it, and for some reason I had never done my version until now, so it was nice to do that. But the rest of them were new, and I don't really write a lot of blues songs, but during lockdown I kind of did.
How did you decide which ones fit in with these covers that you're choosing? And by the way, if if you haven't heard, I mean, there's a Tom Waits cover here. We're not talking, they're all straight blues. Yes, there's Bobby Blue Bland. Yes, Junior Wells. Yes, Elmore James. But to include a Tom Waits cover, I think suggests that, the blues goes further than 1960 something.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought on that. Was I was listening to Make It Rain, the Tom Waits song, one night a couple years ago, and it dawned on me, not only that's a blues song and we could do a nice version of it, but it kind of fits alongside Howlin' Wolf and Junior Wells and all that sort of stuff. And who more than Tom Waits deserves to be in that company, you know? Yeah. So I think it's making a statement. Yeah, this is not just paying tribute to the original giants of the blues. It's also, the present and the future.
It's fun to have you and Government Mule, but you who have done so much great jamming and playing of the blues for us, make the statement of, hey, there is a future for this. And I'm going to put it front and center. I'm going to bring it to stage. What are we looking forward to in terms of having some of the heavy load blues, the new record, come out at the Beacon Theater and the show in Philly. What's your plan?
Well, as an example, we did for our Halloween show, we did two Halloween shows. The first night, we did Heavy Load Blues in its entirety for set one, and then a normal Government Mule show for set two. I'm hoping that in the future, next year, we'll be able to pull off a situation where we're kind of opening for ourselves. Well, we'll do the first set with the smaller setup, doing a whole blues set, and then take a break, move all the small gear out of the way, and get back to normal Government Mule mode and do a whole big long second set. At the Beacon and several times prior to now, we just peppered in a few here and there, where I think at any moment we can bust out a Heavy Load song, but I think it would be nice to play them all in a smaller environment, which is how this record was captured.
Yeah. It sounds like being a fly on that room, that small room, would have been a very special spot to be.
Yeah, and we actually videoed a few of the takes, so there's some stuff gradually coming out where you can get some behind the scenes glimpses and stuff.
You get to hear the buzz of the equipment in the background in between takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's actually a video of us recording Make It Rain, the Tom Waits song, and a video of us recording Snatch It Back and Hold It. And there's more to come. I think we were able to capture several of the keeper takes on video, which was cool.
COVID gave you the opportunity to do this, a bit of a silver lining to what we've been through over the last, I don't know. Has it been 2 years yet? Is it 5 years? I don't even know. Like,
2 years is 5 years at this point, you know.
It's kind of nice to have that time now in retrospect.
Yeah, I think everybody had to find a way and an approach to figure out how to do something they loved and make it through all this nightmare. You know, for me, it was the two positives were spending more time with my family than I normally would be able to, and writing more music than I've written in decades. You know, but you know, the whole world has the blues right now, so it seems like the right time to do this. You know?
Heavy Load Blues is out now. It's available. Tickets for the Beacon shows are available. A little birdie whispered at me that we might be giving some away on the Rat, so you guys might want to tune in for that. Philly show tickets are available. And it sounds like there's even a full-on Government Mule record that is waiting for things to breathe that might be coming out
next year.
Next year. Well, that's great news from Warren Haynes. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. It's great to see you.
It's good to see you too. And, you know, thanks for all the music.
Thank you for being supportive all this time.